Hey guys, it's Sarah here. So today we're actually going to be doing a little acrylic swipe piece. I don't often do these in this studio. I often do them out on the big table because I simply don't have enough room. But we're going to give it a go in here today because the table's covered in birthday presents for my daughter. So this is an acrylic swipe, so an acrylic pouring technique, I guess, little wee abstract piece. I'm trying to do a big one for in the bedroom. Sorry, the colour on there is just not quite right. That's a small piece that I was playing around with just to see if I can copy that. So I'm just using a 12 by 12 inch stretched canvas there, and that's just sort of the colours I'm using. So I've got a copper, a really dark sort of a blue, some leftover gold from yesterday's kids paintings, and tiny bit of grey. I'm not sure if I'm going to use that, some sort of lavendery colours, and just a couple of other blues. Recording this later and I actually don't end up using those two colours at the side there anyway. A little bit of silicone oil, which I'll put in the bottom of the painting, and that's just some floetrol. I always keep some on hand just to sort of smooth things through the painting. And oh yeah, this is just the tiny space I'm working in. So you can do this in small spaces sometimes, guys. That's just some water, and there's some paper towels that I've chopped up and just tipped some water on them. They're just in my painting palettes there, nothing terribly exciting. It's just a piece I'm working on in the background, and then there's just some of my art crap in my back studio. Alrighty, so my the mixture I use is normally about 1 part paint to about 3 parts floetrol and a dash of water, depending on which paints I'm using to get them to the right thickness. I generally use fairly thick paints on the slightly thicker edge of pouring paints, because I don't like them too runny. Just doing this swipe, I find they move around the canvas a bit too much, and I don't need them really flowy. And what I'm doing with this painting is I'm just putting some floetrol, a couple of drops of that silicone, and some of the gold paint, which is that gold paint mixed with the floetrol, and a tiny dash of water, and some white paint, and I'm just going to flick that around the canvas. I just want to get a cover, a base, just something so the other paints are going to slip and slide around a little bit as well. The silicone also sort of comes through the painting a little bit, and you end up with sort of those little bubbles and things over the top of the painting. With this, because I'm using a deep edge canvas, it's quite important that I go around the sides of the painting, which I am going to do. And I'm also just adding a little bit of slightly, thicker gold paint around the side as well. I am going to do a swipe down the sides of the painting, but just to give it a little bit of a background. If I miss any bits, or it just doesn't quite catch in one particular spot, I don't want the sides to look really bare. And what I'm doing, it doesn't matter about those little drops on the things we're going to be going over it with so much paint anyway that it's not really that important. Yeah, this one was a bit tricky because, as you can see, I'm really close to my tower there where I have my camera set up on at the moment. I'm in the process of getting my husband to build me a slightly better rig that doesn't require the narrow piece of wood that I've currently mounted my camera to on the top there, so I can spread those out just that little bit more to give me a little bit more working room. But they're just some little Anko Kmart boxes. I love those actually. They're really good. I know they're plastic boxes and I prefer the bamboo wood ones from there, but they're really good, really handy to have. And I've also, their little paint jars that I've got there are mostly the Anko one. So the one I've got the silver in there, you can see it's got they're just mustard or tomato sauce bottles or whatever it might be from Kmart. $1.50, and they are awesome. Alright, so now I've just done a little bit of a cover. I'm actually doing a second cover. So this is a base swipe, and I'm just using some white paint. I think a little bit more gold goes in here now as well. And I'm going to do a full canvas swipe on these ones. Sort of the base swipe to the base swipe sort of thing that was going in there. And I'm looking for the pearl paint, and I can see it in the bottom of the camera. There it is. So this is it's a metallic pearl paint. So it's a white paint, but it doesn't cover very well. There's not very much left, and it's a little bit silvery. It's a bit shiny, so it adds a little bit of just a little bit of bling in there. It's just, you know, like that. Yeah, so it's just a pearl white. I often use that. It doesn't have the coverage, so it doesn't come out white as such. It's a bit weird, but it's good. I'm just putting a little bit of extra white up the top there because I'm going to be doing a straight swipe. And then I'm like, that side doesn't have enough gold or anything on it actually. It needs something to swipe down over. One of the things when you're doing, you know, like an all over swipe like this, you need to have stuff down the edges of your canvas, not just in the middle, because there's just not quite enough there. So just grabbing a tints bit more gold there. It's not too important for this because I'm going to be doing all those multi-directional swipes over the top of the canvas. But, you know, for completeness sake, better to have it. And I just knocked that back over the edge of the canvas there, and get it all over my paint because it's so close to the jolly canvas. And then I'm just gonna drag that through. It's a damp paper towel. Don't rush it. Take your time. A lot of people, I have people come over and do this, you know, with me and things from time to time, and they kind of get a bit freaked out that the paper towel is going to take off too much paint, and they just go bleh, and they swipe it through really quickly, and you don't get as good a effect doing that. Again, it's a base swipe. It doesn't have to be perfect. I did sort of want it somewhat, you know, a little bit even, but yeah. Probably didn't necessarily need to do this, but there we go. I'm just going around the edge of the canvas there with the paper towel, and I'm actually just going to pause this and speed this bit up because it's a bit boring. Alrighty, so that's just to the sides with a little bit of extra swipe paint on them. Now I'm just using my squeezy bottles there just to drag over some colours. Some horizontal, some vertical. Make sure you need to sort of get relatively close to the edges of the canvas. See how that one goes right to the edge, and I'm just popping a little bit extra there on the side there. Doesn't matter if it dribbles over. We're going to do some swiping on the sides as well. So it's just a dark, quite a dark blue there. And then some copper. It's just a mix of coppers that. It's some expensive and some cheaper coppers, just all mixed together. It was kind of the ends of every bottle of paint that I had that was copper mixed into there. Now just with these, yeah, there's the only problem with these Kmart bottles is the paint comes out really quite thick, which is great if you're doing you know, a large piece where you're going to be doing a tilt or something like that. But doing the swipes, I find that it does come out a bit quick, and it comes out a bit quick when I do it with the kids as well. They need a little bit more control. And these wee bottles here are a little bit easier to use because they come out with a little bit less paint. And for the this particular technique, you don't actually want... someone wants me. I should turn off my phone. Sorry about that. You don't actually want too much paint on the canvas because we're not tilting and we're not tilting it off. That's actually not really too important. So I'm just using a little bit of extra gold, a little bit of lavender, those couple of blues, and yeah, just sort of trying to make a little bit of a pattern. So some up, some sort of down. Looked a bit bare in there. It's not too important. You can always go back over the top of some of these and readjust and move them around, but generally with these, you don't want it to look too, you know, it gets a bit muddied if you do it too much without taking off the paint and redoing it again, if you know what I mean. just teensy tiny little bit of the grey in there, and I think was that I'm just trying to get the last little bits of that metallic pearl out. There's not really very much, but just so I add it in. And then I do want I do want quite a light base in here, so I'm just going through and adding in a little bit more white. So I sort of wanted this sort of to come out a little bit like a white marble with lots of colours in it. Was sort of where I was going, rather than like a dark base with bits of white in it, if that makes sense. Even though you can't see like that, there's a lot of white in the finished piece. It's not quite, yeah. It looks more like it's white with colours added rather than colour with white added, which is kind of what I was going for. Now this is just smaller pieces of paper towel, again just soaked in water. No real method to how to do this other than take your time, sit that paper towel in and drag it through slowly. This is sped up 1.25 times, so if I'm going fairly slowly on here, I really am going quite slowly in real life. And then what I'm doing there is I'm just using the leftover paint that's come off the swipe just to pat onto the side of the canvases, just to make a little bit of extra colour pattern down the sides. Don't do it too many times with the same piece, otherwise it ends up looking a little bit muddied and you lose the pattern. But if you're going to go over it again with another piece, you just want to fill in one little spot and then go back over it again, it's fine too. Just don't like to waste paint, don't want to have to re-swipe it down the side or anything, so there we go. You can see there with the silicone and the paint and the floetrol how those sort of little bubbly cells and things are coming up. Because we're not tilting, we don't end up with those really big cells that you get when you're tilting, but yeah. And one thing I didn't do there was take that really carefully off the edge. Don't rush getting it off the edge, really take it over the edge. Means you end up with nicer edges rather than it looking like you stopped near the edge. And that's just me going through the bottom. And also, if you've painted the sides beforehand with a little bit of paint, got a little bit of that floetrol silicone in through there, the paint that's sitting on the edge does tend to pull over just that little bit better, and you end up with that little bit of that that lip coming down over the side there. And then all this is now from now on in is just having a little bit of a play with where you want to put the colours. So some up, some down. You can vary the size too. Use some different size pieces of paper towel or cards or whatever it is that you might want to be using. I did in another one actually use something really weird. What was it? It was a basting, like something you brush butter on the top of your turkey or something like that. One of the kitchen brush. Just to pull things through at the end as well, just to add a little bit of weird texture. Yeah. And one other thing I have done with some of these in the past, that was just because the paper towel hadn't quite stuck in the spot and I didn't want a whole spot of nothing, is after you've done the actual swiping, you can go back through with pouring like a paint and actually pour a design in as well over the top. That can look quite cool. So you just get your squeezy bottle and just dribble over the top of what you've done with your swipe. I did one of those a couple of months ago actually, but the video was just really rubbish and I just simply couldn't use it, so which is unfortunate. When I moved studios and was playing around with the camera, I'd accidentally sent the hertz like wrong, so it was flickering to the American drum beat and it was not working, so it ended up really grainy and yucky and everything, and it was unfortunate because it was a cool definitely a case of how to rescue a painting that's not gone very well. That was what that was. And there we go. You can see sometimes I drag it through and sometimes I like pat that down on the top. Like you can pat it and you kind of get an imprint of the paint as it is rather than necessarily dragging it through. Sometimes I prefer just to pat it rather than drag it through when I'm going the sides like that. You don't need a new piece of the paper towel every time you swipe. Sometimes, particularly if, like, say up there I've got a lot of white and I want to add a little bit of extra colour, you can use a slightly dirtier piece of the paper towel rather than getting a clean one. Or if you want to add a little bit of the colour you've got on that paper towel into another area, you can just do that. I don't like to use it more than once or twice though, because it does tend to muddy things up. And obviously if you're working with alternating colours there or something, you don't want that. So if you're just doing like a gold and white in one direction and the blue in another, obviously you don't want to do that either. And you can see there's just a little spot that's not quite going to swipe. I just wanted a little bit of extra colour on the side. In the end I need some more later on anyway. You can see I'm just scooting that over sideways a little bit as I pull that through. And that's the other thing you can do. I've just swiped that through with that one there as well. You can also use both sides of the paper towel. It makes the paper towel a little bit heavier. So once you've done it once one way, you can turn it around, and as you can see there, I've got that on the other side. It makes it a little bit heavier. And I actually sometimes quite like that. Sometimes if it's too light with the thicker paint, it doesn't drag through as well. So have a little bit of a play with that. Because I have my paints thicker so they don't run around everywhere, I sometimes need that little bit of extra weight that the slightly heavier paper towel, which either with some extra water or the other layer of the paint on it can give. And you can have a little bit of play, like, yeah, so. Those sort of more stark lines that come when you re-put that back in sort of tend to disappear a little bit after a little bit of time as well. Yeah, just having a bit of a play. Couldn't use the dining table, the big table in the dining room today for this sort of a painting because it's got all my daughter's birthday presents on it. It's May the 4th, May Day. Well, Star Wars Day. Star Wars Day being her birthday. Felt a little bit guilty with the presents. I bought all these practical presents, like a new quilt and a few things that I was going to buy her anyway, because it's coming into winter here in Australia. So my little hot girl who sort of even in midwinter goes to bed with like the fan and a sheet at best, I was like, no, you have to have some proper blankets. So she doesn't own any proper heavy duty blankets, so I've gone and bought her a new quilt and a few things like that. So I was going to buy them for her anyway, so I felt a bit guilty that I put them in as her birthday present. They're nice and everything, but I then went out today and bought her a board game and some new undies and a pencil case because I felt bad that I was just giving her she's only 7, and I felt bad that I was giving her house goods and stuff for her birthday. It seemed like a good idea at the time. Spoiled child. First world problems, I'm afraid. There you can see it sort of just coming through a little bit there. It's so hard sometimes to get these colours on the camera. The gold's a little bit more vibrant in the actual picture. That blue's about right. And a little bit of that white sort of washing out, and you can't quite see it as well. And yeah, so oops. That's sort of where we are with that. I'm wanting to do a bigger piece with this, and maybe a little bit paler than this though for the back of the wall. And here's doing just going back through and knocking through a couple of little areas that I thought needed a little bit more attention. They looked blank, even though they weren't blank. They just needed a little bit more. As I'm looking at the the screen now versus the painting, the white does come through a little bit more in the actual painting. But that's it. So please subscribe. I often do more daily paintings rather than these sorts of little wee things. But yeah, anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope I will see you next time. Maybe a non-talking video with doing some more daily paintings. But anyway, thanks guys, and I will see you later.